Messi has surpassed Pelé, in my eyes, since 2012, at least. It's the year he's been ruthless. It's the year he scored the most goals, broke all records, and not even the 91 goals the year or the 73 goals he scored in the season. But the craziest one is actually scoring against every single La Liga team, in actually reaching 22 straight La Liga rounds where he scored. But the debate persists. We are in 2016 and people still consider Pelé to be the greatest player to have ever lived. And I have been thinking about writing an article about this for quite a while, but I needed more and more research, a lot of research so I have the numbers to it. And here it is. I'm still not able to write, so even though it would be better to see the numbers and uh, be able to you know not only have the numbers but to write properly about this. I'll be doing this my CruijffCast, my video cast on the subject, because the best I can do right now, and since the research is fresh on my mind, I'm doing it anyway, and later on I will probably write an article about this. So let's get to it. When we talk about Messi and Pele, the thing is, I won't even talk about ability per se, you know, because I'm 29 years old. This guy is gonna be 29 years old very soon, and guys my age, people older, people who have been living the Messi era and the current technological era, I have watched literally uh, Messi play for several hundred hours. You know, I'm this lucky. You know, if you're living right now, you have internet connection and you want to, you get to watch Messi play for several hundred hours, and I have. And someone who is able to say they did watch Pele for several hundred hours, that someone needed has to be born on the 40s. The person had to be living in the city of Santos uh, during the 50s, from 1957 until 1974. So this person, the median of this person, of people who did watch Pele for several hundred hours, because remember back then you didn't get to watch away matches like we do nowadays. So just people who still live, who are still alive, over 70 years old, that lived in Santos from 1957 to 1974. So lots and lots of people may say they have seen Pele a lot and they know how good he is, but the fact of the matter is we are really, really lucky, because we not only get to see Messi, have been the last 10 years watching him, but we get to see him in high definition and watch him as many times as we want. And then you have YouTube that make, every single thing you want about him over there. And we don't have that with Pele, you know. If you make an effort, the best you can do, you can watch him for a few hundred minutes is what you get, and the quality is really bad. And because most of the recordings, both from Pele and Garrincha and all the guys from, you know, the 60s and the 50s, it's gone. Happened in the fire here in Brazil. So I'm not talking about ability. The main thing I'm going to talk about today is what Pelé achieved, you know. Because first of all, Pelé did not score 100 to 1,284 in 84 goals, as he likes to say. He didn't. His actual number of official goals is 767 goals. But out of these 767 goals, around 500 were scored in the regional tournaments, both Campeonato Paulista, which is the regional tournament for the state of São Paulo, and Torneio Rio São Paulo, which used to be played. I even watched it when I was younger. It doesn't exist anymore. It was played between the São Paulo and Rio teams. Okay, so the vast majority of Pelé's matches, over 70% of the matches he's played, have either been friendlies. 40% of Pelé's matches have come from friendlies, or regional tournaments. 33% of Pelé's matches happened on regional tournaments. So the main thing about this video cast and what I'm talking about Pelé when comparing to Messi is Pelé has made his fame. Pelé has been boasting he's the best player who has ever lived because, you know, there can't be anyone as good as him because his parents are no longer making children. He has used this phrase several times. But this fame of his, they come from just a few matches, you know, doesn't even come up to 100 matches when he has been either on a league setting or in a World Cup setting or in a continental, you know, Libertadores setting or against, you know, European teams in the continental settings. Would be like the Club World Cup format we have nowadays, but the older one. So let's talk about a few numbers, okay? Uh, Before I delve into the numbers, the thing about Pelé that cannot be compared to this guy, that cannot be compared to Messi, is Pelé's career peaked when he was 23 years old. The best 2 years of Pelé's career were 1962 and 1963. He won both the Brazilian leagues, he won them 62, he won them in 63, he won the Libertadores in 62 and 63, and in 62 he happened to win the World Cup, but remember he didn't, he was injured and Garrincha did it for him. So Pelé's career peaked in 1963, and then it, you know, kept going down. He no longer won the Libertadores, even though he kept winning the Brazilian league, and by 65 it reached its, you know, its plateaued, and from 1966 until he retired, he just stopped winning titles. You know, so the best player of all time, there was no one who ever maybe to match him. By the time he was 26 years old, he stopped winning. You know, the only thing he did win after that was the 1970 World Cup, where he was the best player. You know, he was the golden ball, the MVP, and he gave 4 goals. He scored 4 goals and gave 4 assists on the 6 matches he played. But, you know, he spent 4 years winning it. He didn't win anything. That was his goodbye, his last big tournament, his best big relevant title. And then he stayed at Santos 4 more years until he was 34 and didn't win anything after that. So remember, Messi, that's correct. Messi doesn't get to play regional tournaments. Messi plays over 70% of his matches, just as Pelé played over 70% of his matches of friendlies and regional tournaments. Messi plays over 70% of his matches being the league and the Champions League. So let's get into Pelé's first. Let's compare about the league titles. Okay, so Pelé has won 6 league titles. The thing is, Pelé was really lucky, and this is a fact when you look at the numbers. It's not me being picky, because in 1959, when he was 19, he went to the final, then he lost the championship to Bahia. But the thing is, from 90 to 59 and to 66, the Brazilian league was decided in 4, 5, or top 6 matches, you know, because the league was just starting, was a very primitive league. So the champions from each state, they would go to this competition, but they wouldn't really play. They wouldn't play each other like they do nowadays. It was a competition, like really short competition, and since Pelé came from the big state of São Paulo, he only had to play just a few matches. So Pelé won the Brazilian championship, the league, in 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. Okay? He played to win the six titles, 5 games in 61, 5 games in 62, 4 games in 63, 6 games in 64, and 4 games in 65, which means Pelé is a 6-time Brazilian League winner, having played 5, 10, 14, 20, 24 matches. He was really lucky to be at his peak, the peak of his career, but to be at a time where the Brazilian League was decided in a very, just very few matches. By 1967, that changed, For you to win the league, it was at least 14, 19, and then the number kept rising. So peak Pelé, as I told you, when it was 22, 23, he was, winning, dominating. But, and here starts the thing, Pelé usually isn't the top scorer on the competitions he plays. At least when I'm talking about the league, the continental ones, and even the World Cup. He won it 6 times, but he only was top scorer twice. In 61, he scored 9 goals, but only on 5 matches. And in 64, he scored 7 goals in 6 matches. And the thing about the league competitions that he took place in Brazil, that he took part of, it just shows how his career, it peaked when he was 26 years old, and then it started to go down after he was 26 years old. Imagine that, because when he was 66, he still only played 4 games on the league, but he lost to Cruzeiro. And then in 67 was already 14 games to win the league. He lost it. In 68, it was his last league title. And when he was 28, was the last time Pelé, the best of all time, won a league title was in 1968. He played 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, and 74. So he played 6 more seasons. And not only did he not win the title, he wasn't the top scorer. And when you get to the actual numbers, it just shows a lot, because if you get on the league titles after 1965, when they actually have more games being played, Pelé's scoring ratio drops dramatically, because, for example, in 1965, his scoring ratio was like 0.50, so he scored two goals in 4 games. And then you have 0.40, goals per match, when it was still a few matches. And then after 1967, when they actually were playing more than 10 games, 14, 17, 21 matches, it just keeps dropping, So his absurd scoring ratio there you can see, like in the regional tournaments, where every single season he scored at least, over a goal per match. It just kept dropping, So in 68 it was 0.65, and he won it, the league then. In 69 he kept the ratio at 1 per match. But after his 30s, it's ridiculous. It's like 0.31, 0.05, he was injured in 71, 0.30. So Pelé used to score 1 game, 1 goal at every 3 matches. And then in 73 it was 0.63, and in 74 it was at 0.63, 0.53. So Pelé won 6 leagues in Brazil, but his actual scoring ratio is getting all during all the years he played 173 league matches and he scored 100 goals, which means his scoring ratio is 0.58 goals per match. Now, let's get back to Messi. So this guy has played 342 La Liga matches and he has scored already 304 goals, which means his scoring ratio is, even after 10 years he's been playing the competition and won it 8 times, is 0.90. So for league competitions, Messi not only has played hundreds more matches than Pelé has, his league his scoring ratio is 0.90. It's absurd. Messi is the all-time top scorer for La Liga. Pelé isn't. The top scorer is Roberto Dinamite. Pelé didn't make it. So you just grasp that Pelé has been the winner. He has won the Brazilian league 6 times, but he played very few matches that gave him those titles. It's not his fault, it's just how it worked back then, but just shows us difference because Messi has won these 8 league titles, having played almost 350 matches. And on these 350 matches, he scored almost 305 goals, and his scoring ratio is really high. Just show how relevant he is to the team here. And we don't know if anything like that happened, but if not for the 2013-14 season, Messi would have now 9 league titles, because if there was technology on football, Messi he scored the goal that was wrongly called off, and we would have won the title against Atletico Madrid, but let's not focus on that. Then we have the one thing that starts to set Messi apart from Pelé, and that's when you talk about the continental competitions. Because yes, Pelé did win the Libertadores twice, in 62 and 63. But the thing is, he wasn't top scorer in 62 or 63. The top scorer was his teammate Coutinho, who was the best player in the competition, and they won it. He was top scorer in 1966 when that was the last time he played on the competition, and but the thing, sorry, 1965 he was the top scorer, but he didn't win it. So Pelé finished his career having played 13 Libertadores matches and scored 17 goals. Needless to say, he isn't the top scorer. And even though nowadays Messi isn't the Champions League top scorer, Cristiano Ronaldo is, because he keeps getting, Malmos and Shakhtars to fluff his scoring record. Cristiano Ronaldo will retire before Messi. So Messi will eventually get to be not only the Libertadores the Champions League top scorer, but the thing is, Messi has played over 106 Champions League matches now and has scored 83 goals, and his scoring ratio is at 0.85. So Messi's La Liga record is absurd. I said he had scored 312 league goals, and his scoring ratio is 0.9. But at the Champions League, he has kept at same level, and the Champions League, is much harder. You get to face harder teams, the champions from all over Europe, if you're not named Real Madrid, of course. But we usually face those harder teams, and he has kept his scoring ratio at 0.85, and that's insane, And so Messi has won it 4 times, has been on the final 3 times. He wasn't able to play on 2006, and he scored, goals on 2 finals and was vital in Berlin as well, because he took part of all 3 goals and created the second one when he kicked and Suarez scored from the rebound, and even gave the pre-assist so Pedro could square it off to Neymar on the third one against Juventus. So you can't compare because Messi gets to play the Champions League every year, but the thing is, Pelé stopped winning the Brazilian League after 1965. So the last time he won it, he played it, he didn't win, and from 96 to 74, he didn't win it. So that's why he didn't get to play on the Libertadores. And the thing about sorry, but Pelé did win in 68, but you know you get what I'm saying, right? He didn't get to play on Libertadores as much because his team didn't dominate the Brazilian league as people will think. And before we get into what people want to hear, that is the national team comparison, let's talk about why Pelé has played so many friendlies, why 33% of the matches Pelé has played during his career has been friendlies, and why his team just, stopped winning leagues when he was at his physical peak. He just won one league after he was 25 years old. He won one when he was 28, but that's it. When he was 26, he lost it, 27, and then 29, and then until he retired. So Santos wasn't a big team when Pelé was, coming through. Santos is a team from a small city, is in the capital of the state of São Paulo. It's a port city. And how did they manage to afford to keep Pelé? Of course, teams like Real Madrid and Inter Milan wanted to buy him, but how did they afford to keep him? They decided even when he was young, because since the World Cup in 58, when he was 17, 18 years old, he became very famous around the world. And Santos decided to profit on that. So since he was 19 years old, Pelé has been playing from 20 to 30 friendly matches around the world non-stop. I mean, if you look at it, when he was, I think, 21 or 22, just let me check. When he was 19 years old, Pelé played the absurd number of 103 matches on the year of 1959. And on that year especially, he played 37 friendlies with Santos. And from the beginning, Pelé would get a percentage of the earnings of these matches, but it wasn't as high. He was coming through, he wasn't the best player in the world, because remember, he peaked, came when he was 22, 23. But in 1966, just 1 year after he won his fifth Brazilian league title, Pelé had come to a point in his life where his money was being really badly managed. So he was literally broke, you know. And what happened was he went to Santos and say, okay, we are going to renew. I'm not going to leave to any team in Europe, but from now on, 1966, when he was 26 years old, he would get half of the profits that Santos would get in these, international friendlies. Let's check out the numbers, okay? So from 1966 until he left Santos in 74, Pelé played around 30 friendly matches around the world. So what happened? The team, Santos, decided to focus on these foreign friendlies that would, get them real money, and just stopped caring about the league competitions. They would keep winning the regional one, which is, I won't even talk about it. We're going up in state teams, like weaker teams. That's where Pelé scored most of his goals. But the team and Pelé, they focus on the money instead of winning the league. And you guys, people are gonna say, oh, but Messi has won it because he had Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets and Piqué. Barcelona is a one in a one lifetime team. Messi really lucky to be on that generation. Guys, Pelé used to play with Coutinho and Pepe and Zito and even Carlos Alberto Torres, and Gilmar was the goalkeeper. Coutinho and Pepe combined have scored over 700 goals. Pelé wasn't just Pelé playing with some random guys. He used to play with superb players. You know, Pepe alone is rumored to have scored over 70 free kick goals on his career. That would put him just below Zico and Juninho Pernambucano on the all-time most prolific free kick takers in the world. And the guy has scored over 400 goals on his career, almost 500 actually. And then you had Coutinho, who scored over 300, around 400 goals as well. And then you had like other players who scored a lot. So Pelé was surrounded by great players as well. Okay, so after focusing on this thing, on explaining why he played so many friendlies, why he had stopped, winning the league titles that it has won. Let's get on the one subject that people will talk about, and that is Pelé and the national team. So yes, Pelé has won 3 World Cup titles. Messi is yet to win 1. He has 0. But the thing is, Pelé has never been a top scorer in a single World Cup he has played at. And especially, let's take a look at the players that have followed Pelé on his, World Cup ventures. So in '58, he played in a team with Bellini, Newton Santos, Didi, who was like the best player in the world back then, Altafini, Zagallo, Vavá, and Garrincha himself. So Pelé played 4 games on this competition, scored 6 goals, and even 2 goals on the final. But the thing is, he wasn't top scorer. The top scorer that year was just Fontaine, 13 goals, and the MVP, the Golden Ball winner, was Didi. Didi, he was the guy. He was the best Brazilian player in the 50s. And even though Pelé came in and scored a hat trick on the semifinals against France and then 2 goals on the final, Didi was the guy. So even though Pelé, as a 17-year-old, I'm not taking that from him. That was absurd what he did. But the thing is, that team was really, really, really good. So Pelé was just a newcomer that came and scored like a lot of goals. But I'm not being an asshole here, but Brazil would have won the championship even without Pelé, because that team was really, really, really good. And then in '62, what happened was Pelé was injured after 2 matches. He only scored 1 goal, and then Garrincha took over. '62 is Garrincha's show, So besides that, in '62 he had players like Gilmar again the goal, Djalma Santos, Newton Santos, Bellini, Zito, Didi yet again, but now older. He didn't have the same influence on the game. Garrincha at his peak, Zagallo and Vavá. Garrincha not only won the golden ball, who was the MVP because he scored 4 goals and gave 2 assists, the same thing that Vavá did, by the way, 4 goals and 2 assists, but he was also the top scorer then. I know he was top scorer tied with 5 other players, but he was. Garrincha completely dominated the '62 World Cup while Pelé wasn't there, So he has won 3, but '58 he already had a strong team. In '62 he only won it because he was in a squad that was marvelous and had Garrincha at his very best. In '66 I wouldn't even talk much about it because he already was injured. In '66 the dictatorial military government in Brazil took over, and we had 3 different teams. The management was a mess, and Pelé only scored 1 goal. I won't even talk much about it. But in 1970, Pelé was the best player, undoubtedly. He played 6 matches, He scored 4 goals and gave 4 assists, but he was surrounded by the best national team ever. Period. You know, you have Felix at goal, you have Piazza, you have Carlos Alberto at the back, you have Clodoaldo in the middle with Gerson, Rivelino, Jairzinho, who scored more goals than Pelé, and Tostão, who sadly had to retire soon after due to an eye condition. But, you know, in 1970, Pelé was the MVP. He wasn't the top scorer, but Pelé was blessed after, remember, not winning anything for several years in Brazil with a team that was basically unbeatable. I'm not taking that away from him. He was 30 years old back then, but he prepared for the 1970 World Cup. He saw he hadn't won a title in a while. He had won a league title 2 years earlier, but he had spent in 5 years from 65 to 70. Pelé only won one relevant title. That was the 68 league title. So 69, he didn't win anything. So in 97, he prepared for the World Cup. That was his final big moment. And that's the thing I'm talking about here. Pelé had a few great actual moments when he was, heads and shoulders above the rest of the players, to be considered the best of all time. So we are talking about a player that won 6 league titles, but 5 of them where he played, just 5 or 4, 6 matches. The competition was really short, but he won them. We're talking about a player that only played the Libertadores 3 times, won it twice, but wasn't top scorer in any of the 2 times he won it. Talking about a player that did win the Club World Cup. I forgot, like the Continental Championship. He beat Benfica, where he scored like 2 or 3 goals. And then he won against Inter Milan, who he didn't score. Coutinho did that time. And then he won 3 World Cups. But the first one, he was already at a great team, followed by a great guy who was Didi, and he wasn't the top scorer. In 62, he didn't play. He played 2 matches and scored 1 goal. And he had Garrincha at his very best, but he won it. And in 1970, where he, after, again, spending 5 years and only winning 1 relevant title, he was surrounded by the best national team ever. Players that, even if Pelé wasn't as good as he was immense in 1970, they probably would have wanted to. So the thing is, while Messi, this guy here, has won a triple when he was, by coincidence, 22 years old, he did it again last year, when he was 27 years old. So Messi has kept, his persistently great form and his persistent influence. Because while Pelé has only been the top scorer on the following competitions, he's been the top scorer at his league twice, but remember, when he was playing like 5 or 6 matches. He was top scorer at the Libertadores once. He played 5 matches, scored 8 goals. He was top scorer at the Copa America in 59. That were the competitions he won. So four relevant top scorer awards for Pelé. No, he wasn't the top scorer in any of the World Cups he played. 58, Just Fontaine, 62 Garrincha, and in 1970 it was Gerd Müller. So this guy here has been the top scorer in La Liga 3 times, has been the top scorer in the Champions League 5 times, then the top scorer in the Copa del Rey 3 more times, and in many other competitions. So Messi has played most of his career against harder teams than Pelé did, because Messi constantly is playing the league, is constantly playing the Champions League, And you're talking about a guy who, after he reached his 25th birthday, until he retired. So you have to look at Pele's career when he was 17 until he was 55. That was peak Pele. That was his peak. And but from his 25th birthday until he retired, Pelé only won one league, one World Cup, zero Champions League, just kept playing more and more friendlies to keep his pocket full. And why? Why does he get to keep this the best player of all time thing over and over and over again? It's not fair to compare a guy who has been spending over 70% of his playing career dominating the league he's at, has won 4 Champions League titles, and let's talk about Messi's World Cup, okay? So Messi has played the World Cup 3 times, okay? He has played 2006, 2010, and 2014. 2006 is just as unfair to talk when you talk about the 1966 World Cup for Pelé, because throughout 2006 Messi was a kid. He was 19 years old. He only played 120 minutes. He wasn't a starter, and he wasn't used by Peckerman on the Germany match when Argentina was kicked off. On 2010, Messi played all 5 matches. He was the starter. He only scored 1 goal, but he was being coached by Maradona. And the guy he played with was, like, on the match he lost to Argentina 4-0, Romero on goal, De Michelis, Burdisso, Heinze, Maxi Rodrigues, Tevez. And even though people in Argentina love Tevez, he only scored like 13 goals in the national team. And Higuaín, who I won't even talk about. So while Pelé was just as lucky to have great team players on his on the club side, he was always lucky to have the best Brazilian players, the best generation of Brazilian players. When he won the World Cup in '58, when they won the World Cup for him in '62, and when he won their World Cup in 1970. In 2010, Messi was the best player in the world already, but the national team was coached by a clown. But Maradona has never been a coach. He only went into it because he's famous, and the team was really, really weak. And in 2014, because people went really thought it was unfair for Messi to win the Golden Ball, but if you check the statistics, they prove Messi was superb on that competition, and he carried them to the final after being coached by the guy who is coaching him right now in Argentina, Tata Martino, who wrecked Messi's body. If Messi would have had the chance to play a World Cup in 2012 or even last year in 2015, odds are he would have won it. He would have had a competition as Maradona did in '86, as Romário did in '94, and Rivaldo did in 2002. Remember, Rivaldo won in 2002, not Ronaldo. And Messi got to the 2014 World Cup with a wrecked body after having the worst season he's had since he became the best player in the world. And he was followed by players that, instead of giving him the World Cup, like Pelé got one in '62 and was helped in '58 and 1970, he had players like Higuaín, who had a clear shot on the final and couldn't even hit the goal. Remember, Higuaín did not hit the target. Neuer didn't get to make a save on that thing. And in the Palacio chance, And Messi completely dominated the 3 matches on the group phases. On the last of 16 match against Switzerland, he gave the assist to Di Maria on the 1-0 win. On the on the quarterfinals against Belgium, I was there to watch him. The only time I got to watch him. He was part of the goal where Higuain scored against Belgium, and the Netherlands match was a nightmare. I mean, nobody enjoyed the match. It was a nightmare. But he was the guy who took the first penalty to the Netherlands, and he scored. Different from someone who likes to sell underwear. He didn't choose. He didn't want it to be the fifth penalty taker to take his shirt off and be the man who won the match. He took the first one. He took the responsibility. And sadly, on the final, you know, he lost. He wasn't followed by the teammates that you could hit the target, like Higuain and Palacio. But the thing here is, when you want to compare Messi to Pelé, Pelé has really been blessed by having, legendary, the best players one could hope for during his World Cups, and Messi didn't have that. Besides that, only 1 year he was coached by a decent guy like Sabella. His body he was a wreck, and Di Maria didn't play in the final. He lost, a teammate who really have helped him. Agüero, as usual, was injured too, and the rest of the guys didn't help. So you want to talk about World Cups and the national team? Pelé will have that, but you have to say that Pelé has been blessed. Now, when people say that you can't say that Messi is the best player in the world because he doesn't have the World Cup and his club career can't be used, can't be the main focus, why not? Because Pelé could have won more Libertadores. He could have won more Brazilian leagues. He could have actually been the player with the most titles in history because he was really, really talented. I'm not saying he wasn't. His team was full of talent as well. But after he was 25 in 1966 came on, the club with him, because he made the contract where he would get half the money, focused on getting friendlies around the world, making a lot of money, and the titles didn't come because they didn't focus on the league. Okay? The last thing I'm going to talk to you about Pelé is his league records after 1966, his league position after 1966. Okay? So, in 1967, Santos was the 6th place team in the Brazilian league. In 68, he won it. In 69, Santos was 5th. In 1970, Santos was 10th. In 1971, Santos was 9th. In 1972, Santos was 8th. In 1973, Santos was 6th. And in 1974, on his last season at the club, Santos was the 3rd. So, why does Pelé get to say he was the best player who ever lived and talk about his over 1,000 goals when he didn't score that much? Most of them were in friendlies and the regional tournaments. When he just stopped caring, Santos, after Pelé was 27 years old, only won the competition once and was only top 3 on his last season because the focus of the team was friendlies. So it's really comfortable for Pelé to talk about being the best player to ever live. When he washed away, he chose money over glory. When his club could have won more titles and he could have won more titles, he chose money. And being lucky to have been born in a generation with superb Brazilian players who won World Cup in 62 and helped him greatly won one in 58 and 70, that doesn't make it enough. So, who would you choose? A player who has played over 70% of his career in league matches and Champions League matches and has won 8 league matches, 8 league titles, and 4 Champions League titles? Or a player who, after his 25th birthday, stop caring, start focusing on money, and yet again got to rely on his luck to being born in the same generation of superb players and won his last World Cup. Messi will soon surpass Pelé in titles as well. He's only three titles behind, and maybe by this time next season he will surpass Pelé in title as well. And let's say in 2018, Messi is really fit, and he's also blessed by a group of Argentine players that can help him win the World Cup. What then?